Why do we stay in hurtful relationships? This is what we will cover today in this video. I've decided to discuss a piece of research from a colleague around attachment, and she analyzed different situations, different abusive relationships to link it with our perception of relationship. Explaining that sometimes we are addicted to relationships that may harm us. So perhaps you're in the case where you don't necessarily have a toxic or abusive relationship, but in a way you stay or you want to get back with someone that is not potentially the right person for you. And it's important for you to understand, and I think this piece of research is very helpful, and I will put the link in the description, for you to, again, understand and take action based on the reality of things. And sometimes when it comes to love, it's very hard to face the truth. It's very hard to have an objective view on things. Let me explain everything after the jingle.
IGetMyExPack.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
So this piece of research is from Antonia Henderson, and she explains the role of attachment as a survival sort of mode that we have, even in abusive relationships. So what she describes, and again, I will put the link in the description, is that despite being in an abusive relationship, the attachment bond is so strong, takes priority. So the point of this video is perhaps to be maybe an eye-opener on your specific situation. And again, this is about abusive relationships, but it doesn't have to be necessarily if you are in an abusive relationship, just a relationship that is not mutually where you feel like it's in balance, where you feel you're not being respected. You can learn a lot from this. So the thing is, what I discussed, attachment is about survival. And it's important to remember that we are all wired to attach to others. Avoidant, anxious, preoccupied, however you call them. The thing is, in those situations, what happens is the need for attachment will outweigh the relationship's quality. And so when I speak with clients for the first time, when I onboard them, when we have our first session, it's important to spend a bit of time measuring the quality of the relationship, assessing the relationship. And again, it's very hard to make an assessment on your own situation. It's very hard to be critical on ourselves. So sometimes people are overly critical or they're in denial. So it's important to have a balanced measure. And that's why it's important to have, it doesn't have to be a therapist or psychologist like myself, could be a trusted friend, could be your parent, etc., to give you what they see, to also help you see your blind spot, because it's very hard to be aware of what's going on when we are involved. So the risk of this kind of dynamic is obviously for preoccupied attachment, because the view of self is quite low compared to the view of others. So they will basically enter a relationship with some kind of submissive sort of behavioral dynamic. He's better than me. She's better than me. I'll never find someone as good, as beautiful, as whatever than this person. And so that's why it creates a form of a very strong dependency to this partner, because they enter relationships and they stay in relationships with this belief that they won't find anyone else. And if they leave the relationship, they will never find anyone. And so that's why, again, based on the study, they might tolerate abuse because of that fear of losing. So the fear of losing a partner is way stronger than the pain and the different sort of abuse events that they are going through. In other words, if you increase your view, your self-esteem, if you have a high view of yourself, you basically tell yourself, I can't accept, this is not, I can't accept this kind of treatment of behaviors. I have higher standards for myself. So it's important for you, maybe right now you feel like, hold on, it kind of resonates. It's really about the perception of yourself. If you're not aware of that, and if you don't do anything about that, you're going to create repeated hurt, cycles of repeated hurt, right? Because the problem in abusive relationships or disrespectful relationship is that every time you don't speak up, every time you accept something that you shouldn't, you create a new standard. You create a new baseline. And so your partner will not be aware that they are raising or escalate the abusive or the dynamic. Again, this is about abusive relationship, but also you can apply it and make that sort of parallel with relationships where you just feel, it's just a one-sided relationship. And the reason, so what is very interesting is that abuse bonds us even more. That's one of the kind of a crazy finding of this study. When you have an abusive relationship, you can actually strengthen the attachment. I'll just quote what they say in the study. Individuals will seek proximity to an attachment figure even when the attachment figure is the original source of the threat. You know it's bad for you, but you can't help it. It's a form of addiction. And again, the fear of loss will cling people to stay with those abusive partners. And what it creates is this intertwined dynamic between pain and intimacy. Because I don't deserve love, I don't deserve to be loved, I expect to get hurt. I can't picture myself having an easy relationship. It has to be complex, it has to be difficult, it has to be painful, because I'm not worthy of love. And so when you have this kind of dynamic, it's very hard to extract yourself from it. And it makes the bond even stronger. Very much toxic, very much this constraining yourself with this dynamic. And what happens is also the anxiety will fuel the fire, will make it even stronger. Because anxiously attached people, preoccupied people, they fear rejection and abandonment. That will force them to stay in this dynamic. The problem is that it can also escalate, as I discussed, as you increase the baseline into aggression or tolerating aggression, right? Instead of having a peaceful relationship, and don't get me wrong, being in a relationship is not easy. You have to work out things and have difficult conversations, but it's different than having a hectic, toxic, difficult, where you feel like you have to fight, where you feel you have to bite your tongue because you can't speak up. What's also interesting from this study is like both men and women show this pattern of behaviors. Sometimes people have the assumption that only women will suffer this kind of situation, but both men and women could be sort of could suffer this. So the reason I'm making this video is because understanding is the first step. Understanding that maybe what you're going through is an attachment-driven behavior. And as we discussed, sometimes we put the attachment as a survival required sort of piece of, kind of defining ourselves, defining our decisions when it comes to relationship. And we can't see like, why am I addicted? It's a little bit like an addiction. One tip that she described in the piece, in the study is self-soothe is one way to develop this independence. To stop relying on your partner. A healthy relationship is not being overly dependent. You're the only thing that matters. You're the only person I look up to. You're my world. A healthy relationship is when you manage to nurture your life and be able to meet with your partner and have your relationship. So that's your life, your relationship. And it's not your life is your relationship. It's very different. And so that's the thing where you have to nurture self-soothing and emotional regulation, which could be done with CBT and other approaches with a therapist. But also understanding that you also have to design your life in a way that you don't have to over rely on your partner. So if you want to stop being in those abusive relationships, again, I'm talking about the abusive relationship that could be just relationships where you feel it's one-sided. Change your attachment patterns will help. That's the easiest way to change the dynamic. The reason I'm making this video is because perhaps this was the piece of knowledge you just needed to learn. Perhaps that would be a wake-up call for you to ask yourself, what am I still doing in this relationship? Challenging the belief around what's healthy, what's good for me. Maybe it's time to leave that relationship. If you want, I'd be more than happy to get your stories in the comment section. I know that sometimes hearing stories of people going through similar experiences help. So feel free to share your story, your learnings, any tips. And if you feel you're having a hard time, if you feel distressed, reach out to a local therapist, to someone online, to myself, whoever, but don't stay on your own. If you feel you're in distress and want to talk to someone, could be with me, could be with anyone else. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.